I yell at the receptionist, and the chiropractor comes in, and he says, "Hey, I hear you've had kind of a rough morning," and all of a sudden I'm like, I don't know what is wrong with me, but it was extremely frustrating. So I get upset, and he's like, "You know what? I think you have a brain injury. I want you to go to the Brain Institute. They specialize in brain injuries, and they also specialize in stroke victims. It's a similar it's similar symptoms, whether you have a stroke or a brain injury from a traumatic event." Okay, it's day 6, which is crazy. Can't believe I've already got 5 videos posted. But so today, what I thought I would do is talk about after the accident, the next day. If you've seen that content, I'll give you just a brief summary just to catch everybody up. So, car accident, 2020, head-on collision, both of us going 60 miles an hour, fatality accident, drunk driver. I survived. I had a passenger in the car. I both got a head-on hit and went swirling in a circle and ended up hitting a telephone pole. My head went through the driver's side window, so my brain got jumbled going forward and sideways. So I went to the hospital. Wasn't overly thrilled with the kind of care I got there, but I did not want to leave the hospital. I thought I was going to be in dire straits had I left. I had this feeling that if I went to sleep, I wasn't going to wake back up. It was only because, Sonny of Sonny Share, when he had his concussion, I remember that, and a couple other people, skiing accidents, concussions. I should have been more mindful that I'm under medical care. But I wasn't thinking clearly. My brain was jumbled and I was still in shock. So I came home, slept for 18 hours. The next day that's where we are now. It's the next day. So I get up. I am so sore. I cannot. I'm swollen. My body, my face, my neck is just swollen 20%. It's and so for so long I wanted to get rid of that swelling. And then I realized once the swelling started going away, the swelling was a good thing. So if you've ever been in an accident, you might want the swelling to go away, but know that that's helping mask all the injuries that you have. And when that swelling goes away, things get a lot more painful. Either way, it's still COVID going on. So I wanted to be sure and continue with my regular routine. I knew that if I sat around and, one, felt sorry for myself, I'd get very depressed, and 2, I would get very stiff, and that wouldn't make anything better. So I went to the park with the dog, and it's October. So it's not like overly hot, but usually I walk about 3 or 4 miles in the morning with the dog. And I found myself walking like 300 feet and having to sit down. I was dizzy, and my vertigo was off, and I was just exhausted. So I only ended up walking like I think it was 3/4 of a mile that day. Went to the dog park. People that I know at the dog park were like, "What happened to you? You look horrible." I'm like, "Yeah, thanks." But I was black. I'm like, I explained what happened, and that was that. So, but for me, again, my experience might be different than anyone else's experience here. But for me, making sure I stayed active and use those muscles, I think helped me heal a little bit quicker. My double meniscus tear was giving me quite the limp. My back hurt, my neck hurt, my wrist hurt. I was having a problem, just breathing correctly with the broken rib. And so every time I sneezed or laughed or coughed, oh my gosh, it was like re-breaking that rib again. It was less than fun, but made it through that, and it was interesting because I wasn't afraid to drive. People ask me, were you afraid to get back in the car? And I was not. And did it slow you down? It slowed me down because I couldn't think correctly, so I had to drive, differently. I'm a very intuitive driver. I go fairly fast, and I just had to do things differently. But what was really messing with my head was the fact that I could not put thoughts together. So I knew something was up. I didn't know what. I just knew that my brain wasn't working correctly. I just thought I was tired, to be honest with you. So we have a friend that's a lawyer, called her and sent her the pictures. She deals with a lot of motorcycle accidents, so she's used to fatality accidents. Very happy. Fran Hosh was my lawyer. She did an amazing job. So I talked to her about how to proceed in Florida. If you get in a car accident, you need to get a lawyer, because the insurance companies are just going to try everything possible to not pay your claim. I had a lot of stuff going on. I had a totaled car. I had medical injuries I knew were going to be very, very expensive. And I already had like a $90,000 hospital bill from this hack hospital, regional hospital. So I didn't want it to like financially bankrupt me, so I got representation. So she's like, we'll have someone come out and sign the papers and everything. You take care of the car part. We only do the injury part. And then she's like, I want you to go see a chiropractor. I'm like, yeah, I don't think I need a chiropractor. She's like, trust me, you do. And you have to document your case. And the way we do that is with a chiropractor. So I'm going to send you a chiropractor, make an appointment the next day. So I think I was up for 8 hours. I got so tired, I just went back to bed. During those 8 hours, I did call the insurance company, State Farm, and put in my claim against their person that was driving. We still didn't know who was driving. It was a woman, a young girl that was registered on the policy, but it turns out she was married. So for like 4 days, I thought that a young woman died. And with my daughter and stuff, that upset me a lot. Not that it being a male didn't upset me, it was just different. Because I have a son too. But they, the ages were very young, 22, 23, so I was not thrilled about that. But what could I do? I did not hit him. He came over and hit me head on. He passed out, or I don't know what happened. We'll never know. But so we filed the claim. That was upsetting because I'm reliving the story. I have a concussion, so my emotions are crazy. The next day, I call the chiropractor. They're like, okay, usually we try and schedule 10 appointments at first, and you'll with that type of a car accident, you're going to want to come every other day. I'm like, well, let's slow down there. Why don't we start out with a week's worth, and then I'll probably be good. I just didn't understand, one, how lucky I was to not have substantial injuries, and two, that I did have injuries. Just because you can't see them, soft tissue injuries are are tricky because you can't see them. Now, as the day went by, my body kept getting more and more bruised and more swollen. So I knew something was going on. So I met with the chiropractor. He kind of manipulated me. I wasn't thrilled with him manipulating my neck because I had a neck injury. But he's like, it's fine. And I should have never let him mess with my neck. Nothing ever happened. I have a very good friend that's a physical therapist, and he was telling me, do not let him mess with your neck. But it was just part of the protocol. I know I should be a better advocate for myself, but for whatever reason, I wasn't thinking thoroughly enough. Then I met with the representation from the attorney, and the guy's like, all right, so this is what happened, and I need you to sign these. We met at Starbucks because my house is a mess. So we met at Starbucks, and I'm signing these papers, and he's like, well, how's everything else going? I'm like, well, and which anytime anyone asks me how I'm doing, I like broke down because I wasn't doing well. As hard as that was to admit to myself, because I'm a fairly strong person and not used to showing emotions, especially negative ones. So, we're talking about it. He's like, and then I'm explaining to him, I can't. I'm having a hard time thinking straight, and just off the cuff, he's like, well, you might have a brain injury. I didn't think anything about it. I only remembered it later on once I found out I had a brain injury. And I'm not going to bore you guys with how the chiropractor went. For the next 3 to 4 weeks, it was clear that I needed it, and the treatments did help. They have this rolling pin thing that felt really good, and heat and ice. But for the next 6 weeks, I was just trying to understand what was going on. The other thing that was going on with me was I didn't have depth perception. So I pulled out in front of a car because I thought it was far away, when actually he if he would have hit me, it would have been my fault, and he could have hit me. So I shouldn't have been driving, but they didn't tell me I couldn't drive. But I was having a hard time measuring depth. I was also having a hard time following instructions or doing things in a sequence. I couldn't remember if I had to do 1, 2, and 3. I would forget what 1 or 2 was. I wouldn't even know where to start. I couldn't remember where I was parking my car, and which was very frustrating. So I would have some mood swings. All this was all part of a brain injury diagnosis. I didn't understand the symptoms for. The other thing was I would think about doing something, and my brain would register it as having done it. So I'd be like, be sure and turn off the gas grill. Be sure and turn off the stove. And then my son would be like, do you know the gas grill's on? I'm like, I know I turned that off. Do you know the stove is on? He left the stove on again. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I left the fridge door open. I got to where I would just leave my keys in the car because I was always losing my keys. So that went on for probably 8 weeks. And I began to get a little better. I got COVID. I continued to try and get as much exercise as possible. And then went into the chiropractor one day, and they changed the policies to where you had to wear a mask. And being in Florida, we didn't have those type of policies. So for whatever reason, it set me off because I didn't have a mask with me. And I'm like, last week I didn't need a mask. Now you tell me I can't come in without a mask. This is bullshit. And I'm yelling at this receptionist who turns out to be the chiropractor's wife. I felt so bad. But at the time, I was just incensed. I had all this rage, all this frustration because, nothing seems to be going right. I'm not getting better. I'm wondering why I'm doing the chiropractor appointments. I'm worried about money. I did get my government EIDL loan for the COVID for my company, but now I'm confused about how I should use it. So, and the company's not going great because of COVID, and we can't get any workers to come in the United States to help these farmers do what they need to do. So I yell at the receptionist, and the chiropractor comes in, and he says, "Hey, I hear you've had kind of a rough morning," and all of a sudden I'm like, I don't know what is wrong with me, but it was extremely frustrating. So I get upset, and he's like, "You know what? I think you have a brain injury. I want you to go to the Brain Institute. They specialize in brain injuries, and also they also specialize in stroke victims. It's a similar um, it, it's similar symptoms, whether you have a stroke or a brain injury from a traumatic event." He's like, I really think, you're not usually like this. You're usually so happy. And, I think you have a brain injury. So I'm like, oh. He goes, just call and get evaluated. I'm like, okay. So I go to the Brain Institute, I make an appointment. And they're like, and I'm talking to now I'm dealing with orthopedic surgeons too. What I didn't understand was that the chiropractor is taking the lead on my medical care. Now, I've been in medical long enough to know I didn't know it at the time, but looking back on it, I should have had the orthopedic surgeon running my medical care. And he was great. The orthopedic surgeon was amazing. The chiropractor was good, but I just don't think they have as much training. And like I would ask him about my meniscus tear. He's like, "Hey, I don't know." I'm like, "Well," he goes, "I work on bones and I don't work on knees. You got to ask the orthopedic surgeon that." So that was a little frustrating. But when I talked to the orthopedic surgeon about going to the Brain Institute, he's like, "Well, shut your eyes and let's see what happens, and stand on one foot." Well, I thought I was gonna fall. I could not maintain my balance. He's like, "No, you definitely have a brain injury." He says, "So let's go there. We have one too, but let's go there and get evaluated, and we'll go from there." So I went to the Brain Institute, made the appointment, and they're like, "Well, first we do an assessment where you do this VR. You wear these VR goggles, and it tells you where to go, and you got to remember how to get back and stuff." And it was so hard, and I was so tired afterwards. And so you do these tests, they do these balance tests and everything, and then you talk to the doctor that day. So I'm sitting there waiting on the doctor, and I'm like, how's it going?" He goes, "Well, so you got to understand, because you never really tested with us before you had the brain injury, it's hard for us to exactly assess where you're at." He said, "But you definitely have a brain injury, and there are things that we can do to help you." He goes, "But I need you to understand that you're at like 35% brain function right now. And if you work really hard and do work with us and don't miss an appointment and really commit to improving, we can probably get you back to 75%. And that was a very tough day. No one wants to hear they're at 35% of brain function. And no one wants to hear, if you work hard, you'll get back to 75%. I'm thinking, well, I that's not okay. I want to be at 100% or 102%. I mean, I always want to try to improve. I don't want to settle for 75. Um, so I committed that day. You know, they're like, don't drink, eat right, and it's going to help a lot. And I was already trying to eat a little more healthy. Plus, my knees, you know, I'm having problems with my neck, my back, my knees. So I need to lose weight anyway. Not that I was overly heavy, but I could have lost 20 pounds happily, and been much healthier. So I kind of committed to a healthier lifestyle, and it did help. Now, it helped me. I'm not saying it's going to help anybody with a concussion or a brain injury or even a stroke, but I can tell you that the repetition of doing the exercises every day helped a lot. But I think that's a great place to step to a great place to stop for today. And then I think that's a great place to stop for today. And we'll update the rest of the story on the next video. So thanks so much for stopping by, and I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.